All right, so we have the pattern for the oar blade for the sweep. The only thing about this is that I rough cut this pattern with a bandsaw, and I just need to spend a minute trimming it a little bit. At some point I will do a more thorough thing about patterns, but this gives you a chance about seeing about trimming patterns. A couple different ways to do it. I usually like to do most of the work with a block plane, the fine block plane. It's a low angle block plane. All right. So start in. I don't set it too deep a cut on it, and just start trimming. And what I want is a nice smooth curve, and I want to trim till I see about half my line. And I can feel the bumps, and so when I hit the high bumps, wherever there's the most wood, between the edge of my line, I trim there first, and then as I get trimming more and more, the distance gets more even. All right. Now, as I get into this reverse curve, my plane won't go there. All right, so I do as much as I can. So then I can switch to a spoke shave. All right, it doesn't have a very wide base, so it can do insides of curves. It can't do real steep curves, but it can do these curves here will do just fine. So again, trim where there's the most. Generally speaking, most people will hold a spoke shave with two hands for heavier work, but in this case, it's really thin. I need to hold the pattern, so I'm just gripping it with my one hand. And I also am trying to angle it a little bit so it does more of a slicing cut than a just straight butting cut. Plywood is a little hard to cut because the grain runs in two directions. All right? You just have to think a little bit. Then I'll switch back to the block plane to blend it in. And then I'll carefully run my hand along it to see if I feel any bumps. Right. Another tool that can be really handy for this sort of thing is to take a sanding belt, which a sanding belt has a pretty thick back on it, and this is about a 50 grit pad. All right, and I can hold that on there, and that will go over both curves quite easily. And that helps me smooth out the curve even more. All right. So I'll repeat the same thing for the other side, and then we'll mark it. All right, now we have a pattern that's all cleaned up, ready to be used. All right, there is an arrow. This is the actual end of the blade. Alrighty, so we have a little bit of extra pattern that goes past that, just so we have that there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up this line with the arrow with the mark, and line this end up with the center line. Now, how do I make sure I can't quite see my center line? So what I need to do is I need to make my center line on the end of the blank. So I can see that. All right. Line that up there. Line that up there. All right, now we have one big problem. I can mark here because it's flat. I can mark here because it's flat. I can mark, make sure I'm still in the center line. Yep. I can mark up here where the blade is, where the blank is flat. Blade, all right, but I have a couple problems. All right, so what I'm going to do, I've got lines going across here. Got one there, that extends and goes there and goes there. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that off, and at each mark, I'm going to mark the width of the blade. All right, we're going to take a short stir stick, and we're going to use it as a story stick, which is we're going to take measurements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the end on my pattern. There are lines for the sides of the loom. I'm going to put the end of my story stick, of my stir stick, on that line and going to mark the width of the blade at that point. All right? And we'll call that 1. All right? Then at the other one, and it actually is the same distance right there. All right? So at both points, it's the same distance. Okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my marks here. I'm going to touch the sides of the loom. I'm going to mark there and mark there. So that's the width of the blade. Because this is cut out, when I put my pattern over it, I can easily be in the wrong place when I draw that because my pencil wiggles. So now what I can do is mark the side here and the side here. All right, so those are the width I need at those points, at the deepest part of this. All right, so now what I can do is put my pattern back in place. I can line up with the marks, center marks, and with the lines I drew earlier. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my pencil. I'm going to line up there and then draw this and just hold my pencil in the same angle all the way through. So I know that I'm holding, I haven't gone too far wide and I haven't gone too narrow by holding my pencil. All right, and then I'll repeat the same thing here. Get on my mark, go up, draw there, and come up. All right. Make it nice and dark. All right. Now we have the blade on both oars marked out. Okay. Now what I can do, just like the regular oar, but in this case, I'm going to go from the lower end of where the leather goes. The leather goes in here. I'm going to line up with that mark there. And I'm going to go to the edge of where the pattern marked. All right, there, and draw that line. All right, nice big dark line I can see easily. All right, do the other side, line up with the edge of the mark, I can see it. Line up with the mark from the pattern on the other side. And draw a line. Right. Now, what I could do, one last measurement I need to lay out. And I need my square to do it. On the drawing, all right, on my drawings, up near the handle, here, at the end of the fillet or the curve, all right, the dimension is 1 3/4. All right, it's not 2 1/4. It's 1 3/4. So what we're going to do is the easiest way to do that. 1/2 of 1 3/4 is 7/8. Remember that from the other oar. So we're going to put our inch mark in the middle. Go to 7/8 there and 7/8 there. All right. And then what we'll do is rotate the oar. And we'll do the same thing here. Whoops, wrong rotating. There it is. Seven eighths there. 7/8 there. All right. Now what we can do is take the straight edge and we'll go from the top or the end of the leather that's closest to the handle, all right, That's the first one we did, to taper down to the blade. We're going to taper from, now we go from this one. We want that section that hits up against the oarlock to be straight at the biggest dimensions we can get. So that is a straight line. Then we'll flip this side. Oh, ooh, ooh, ooh. Mr. Brooks is making a mistake.